Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. Hello, everyone. It is another time and another opportunity to be able to come together, to join the circle, to sit together, to listen, to learn, and to be. I want to welcome you today, and as I welcome you, I want you to know that that welcome that is being extended to you today and any time that you come to this circle, the welcome is extended to all of your parts to show up just as you are today. So many times we think that we have to show up in a certain way, specifically to ceremonies or to teachers or anywhere. We have these preconceived notions, and usually the person many times that shows up is the mask that we have used, the role that we have played. In many cases, because I teach, and since that is the energy of many of my circles, that space of teacher and student, student and teacher, sometimes we want to show up as the good student. And many times that good student wants to also show how they're a good student by, instead of listening to what is happening and opening themselves up in a different way, they show up with their expertise on a subject. Today, I'm asking you, and why am I taking such a long, or what you would think is a long time to introduce the topic, is that as I've been sitting with this topic, it's come up many times this week. I'm recording this, and you will be hearing this nearing the ends of the days of the Trecena of Achpu, which is God of the sun God, standing in the light. We are in the time of the West still, in the medicine circle, the time of the long shadow, the thunder beings. And it is again raining here. We have had a lot of lightning storms. And so this is the time of great change, of rumbling and tumbling, even in the heavens. And then the reason that I say that is that if you arrive to this episode, this circle, as someone who has been through your own wars, your own deaths this week and the previous, know that we are in those times. Because of that, one of the beautiful things that has come down with the thunder and the rain and the lightning storms is grace. Today's topic is about grace, amazing grace. Now, because I'm going to title this Amazing Grace, this episode, you will come into this circle already thinking or having a reference point for this, be it the very popular song amazing grace, being your definition of grace coming from a more Judeo-Christian background, where grace is an act of God, where many times grace and mercy are confused, many times, where grace is a gift we don't deserve, mercy is not getting the punishment we deserve. So it has that energía, those strings attached to many times a being. And if you grew up in the Judeo-Christian tradition, it has that attachment. And that's why I took the time to welcome all of you, including those attachments or ideas you might already have of this topic. I welcome them not to fill your mind and your body and your essence in this space, but to sit down. Can you today take the time to lay down your stories? In this case, surrounding grace. Specifically, amazed or amazing grace. I had the beautiful opportunity to sit in the ceremony this week where I was not conducting it, which means I was there to, as a student, to receive. And it was just so nice to be able to lay down my experiences or my perceived experiences in that circle, in that time, in that space, and receive from the grandmothers and the grandfathers. Receive wisdom and knowledge. Receive new ways of being. And as I was asked, invited, permitted, welcomed into this circle, one of the conversations of the grandmothers and the grandfathers, as we were reviewing the West, was this conversation of grace. That conversation also had a moment before it where we were talking about the oral tradition in the way that we've been taught, and how the reason that we continue in an oral tradition and do not write things down is that we do not want people to think that they can just pick up the book and read it and have the knowledge. Reading is not part of it. It is the experience of being in circleness, being with the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the teachers, and being in community if it's possible. That when these teachings and these stories happen, you have your experience because you are being held and sitting in circleness that is allowing that to happen. Even my teacher, one of them, one of many, reminded me of that because I had been taking notes, which is allowed earlier, just small ones. And they said that many times when you read a word, you don't have the experience of that word. You only have your perceived concept of what that word means. They used in their teaching the example of war. When we read that word war, I'm sure we've read it many times in many arenas, whether it's historical, whether it's on the news, whether anyway, we've heard war, read war. And when we read that, we only have our experience of that word. We don't have the full experience of it unless we have been to war. And I use that example as it was used with me because it struck me so deeply. What it made me realize is the limitations of our experience, which create our knowledge, is limited. And so today, as I bring this topic of grace, I want to address the fact that our experience of grace is limited, whether we have received it or not, but also in what form and how it has been brought into context. If your God is the only one who can give you grace, that story is limiting your experience of this possible expansion of what grace can be. The other limitation that I really need to address is that many times, if you do not grow up in a culture where the rocks and the trees and the ocean beings and the birds and the flora and the fauna and the insects and all of these kingdoms are equally of value and relation in your life, then your experience of this world and of words and of grace will only be either human-centric or human-centric and your God. It will not include the rest of this amazing planet and the diversity of our nature. And the reason that I bring that to the circle today is that I don't want us to forget about the earth when we talk about grace. In Hawaii, there is the word aloha. And aloha isn't just hello and goodbye. There is a relationship not just to the human element of mercy, grace, and compassion in aloha, but to the aina, to the land. When you speak to Hawaiians or you speak to Hopi, Apache, Lakota, in the circles that I've been able to sip, Zapotec, there is always that knowing that when we are learning and being taught or teaching or sharing our experiences, it is not just human-centric. It is not just for humans. It is not just experienced by humans. And so the reason that I'm saying this is that even that song, Amazing Grace, it has a very narrow, even though it's been used and widely adapted in Americana, connotation and element and direction and confinement to what that grace is. Today, as we stand in the sun, the energía of Achpu, who allows and helps us shine the light into the darkness. And not because the darkness is bad. Sometimes the darkness is just limited reality. So it feels dark. Sometimes it feels like it was light when that reality was new to you. It was light. And then as you grew and as you changed and wanted more expansion, it became dark to you. And then you didn't like it. My wife this morning challenged me saying, Marita, when you don't like the stories that other people are in, remember that you were in that story once. You had that story. You lived that story. And this was a conversation about money. I had a limited money story. It's something that I continue to grow and expand as I grow in my relationship to that energy, to that flow, to that grace. And so she said to me, and it wasn't even about my reaction to others. It was, Marita, when you do not allow your past experiences, things that you have expanded beyond, and you judge them, you are judging the old you. And that old you is still a part of you. Okay. I want to pause here and take 3 breaths because I need them. Because as we're still using this oral language, the energy of wind and breath to break through conditioning or to usher in an opportunity and a bridge of a new way, let us pause and make sure we are here. So let us take 3 breaths in and out through the nose. Some of you have walked into the circle already doing your 3 breaths, already in that practice, specifically if you're a student of mine, or if you're someone who listens to me and follows me in the other forms of social media and pláticas that I give. But if you are just landing here for the first time and you're listening to this episode for the first time, let us take our 3 breaths to recenter, redirect, and create a greater opportunity to receive grace today. We're going to take 3 breaths in and out through the nose, welcoming our body, our mind, and our essence. Let us begin now. In and out through the nose. Let's welcome that mind that is processing all of this information. That's what the mind does. It processes information, right? Does this make sense? Does this not? It's data driven. Thank you, mind, for processing these words, these noises, these sounds that become words that then become information and data that you are stringing. Thank you, mind. Now our body. Here we go. In and out through the nose. Bringing our body into this time, into this space. And as we do that, we remember that our knowledge, our wisdom, our seed of potential that the ancestors planted is in our body. And so we acknowledge the body, and we acknowledge that the journey between the mind and the body, the mind and the heart, is a 1,000,000-mile journey. And we take small steps toward it every day as we learn to become cohesive. Okay. Last focus breath here. In and out through the nose, bringing your essence into this time, into this space, into this circle. And as you pause to welcome them in, if you have not welcomed them in the beginning, I want each one of them to hear this word grace, so that their own experience, their own intelligence of it, their own wisdom of it can start to be woven for you to have a larger, longer, wider experience, deeper experience of this grace that we are learning about. I want today for you to welcome that word of aloha as part of your definition of grace, because it includes Mother Earth. Therefore, we can learn grace from all of the kingdoms around us and not just be limited to human experiences of it or God experiences of it in a compartmentalized way. If we step into a road where we can take this idea of grace as being given by a creator to its creations, then it's not limited to just one. So if that's the road that you need to take to start embracing grace as being something universal, not just a human experience, then I welcome you to take that road and join us in the circle that way. As we come back into the circle with all of our parts, making sure that they're all here and welcome now. Taking that road necessary for you to create and start creating that map or that inclusion of all of creation and this experience and in this circle of teaching. Now we can talk about grace as a spontaneous energy, a spontaneous gift. But I want to talk about la energía de gracia. It is spontaneous. It is unearned, unexpected, undeserved. And I want to talk about that unexpected a little bit. And if we talk about grace as this spontaneous combustion, this spontaneous energy, and if you need to give it a color, a texture, its own beingness in your own way, please do so. It exists. It is created spontaneously. That means we don't know which elements will create grace all the time. And the reason that I'm stating that is that as you are living and we are living in this time of the shadow, these stories that once were light to us, as we remember that transition of when they were light to darkness to now an explosion into a new momentum forward of a new reality as we are learning and creating new ways, that spontaneous eruption, spontaneous shift in perspective in and of itself is grace. Grace walks in light and in shadow and allows for that movement, that spark of imagination, that spark of creativity to move you forward. Grace is an alchemist, and it is one we do not earn or can control. That is why it is amazing when we experience grace, when it is given to us. If you allow yourself to receive it, it is unexpected. Things that are unexpected, or some would say undeserved, have an opportunity to shift the momentum of our reality in so many ways if we allow them to do their work. To not contain them, define them, because the moment that you do not receive grace, that you have a story about your deserving of it, you're trying to contain something that was created spontaneously. You're trying to own grace. You cannot own or work for grace. It spontaneously happens in nature, within creation, including that creation that is not human. Let us go back to the rain and the thunderstorms that we have been experiencing here. I feel many times when you experience thunder and lightning, it is unexpected. We react to it in an unexpected way. It is a combination of elements coming together that creates this energy that we hear and see in the skies. It doesn't happen all the time. The conditions have to, and the elements have to combine for that reaction to happen. Even though we try to understand nature and we try to explain it with science, there is something awesome, full of awe, that we must always have with nature. We will never be able to contain it. Lightning like thunder is like grace. The elements have to be there, and you see that reaction, and it moves you. And the rain that comes down to a land that needs it has been crying, has been dry. And all of nature experiencing that dryness, the trees, the birds, even the insects experience all of it. You're not the only one experiencing a dry spell. They experience it in a different way. And for some, it might be even harder than it is for you. And so that rain that comes down after that spark is grace. The receiving of Mother Earth, of this rain that was needed and wanted to nurture all of her creations, is received with grace. To receive with grace means you unexpectedly get out of your way and out of your stories. It is a spontaneous action, the giving and the receiving of grace. Just like the spontaneous action of elements coming together in the skies to give us thunder, lightning, and rain, and the receiving that happens from Mother Earth and all of the animals and the plants and all of the beings and all of the creatures as they receive. I remember this one time when I was young where there had been no rain for weeks upon weeks upon weeks upon weeks. It was dry. The earth was dry. Humans became dry. Everything was dry and brittle and breaking at a breaking point. You see, for all of you who like to stand in the light a lot, be careful of your breaking point. Even then, there always must be balance. So at this breaking point and beyond many of the breaking points emotionally for some humans, and definitely for the suffering that was happening on the earth because of the lack of water, there was this collective experience of this. And then one day, out of the blue, as they say, or out of nowhere, unexpected, this climate front of thunder, lightning, and rain came in. It was not on the radar. No one had predicted it. It was unexpected. And everyone in the apartment buildings where I was living when I was a child came out and danced. And because I grew up with immigrants from around the world, and this was literally housing, student housing for people from around the world danced. The representation of people from around the world danced. My Greek friends, my Ethiopian, my Sudanese, my Ecuadorian, my Mexican, my indigenous friends danced. We danced in the rain as we all collectively, as humans, as trees, as earth, bees, insects, aves, flying, experienced an unexpected moment of outpouring of something that we needed, that we did not earn or deserve. It was grace. And so with that imagery of that amazing grace, let us do a small meditation. We begin our meditations again by finding a comfortable space. And if you have to just reset yourself, please do so now. If you're out walking or jogging or listening to this while you're working out, someone said that they do that, I really welcome you to pause whatever activity that you are doing right now. Pause that forward momentum of what you are doing so that a new calibration or possibility of being in this meditation in circleness can occur. So change the conditions, right? Make them unexpected conditions. So with that, what we do expect is our 3 breaths. So let us take them now. As we begin to settle in, taking our first intentional breath in and out through the nose, bringing our mind into this time and place. In and out through the nose, bringing our body into this time and place. In and out through the nose, bringing our essence into this time and place. It's all 3 combined. We welcome them to enter into the east, into this circle in our hearts. And I welcome you to imagine your parts entering into the east, walking down to the south, and all sitting together. Don't worry, they don't have to touch. They can sit side by side in the west. The time of the shadow, the time of the lightning and the thunder beings, and the time of grace. It is here where I want you to sit with the stories that you have brought in, those things that have become a yoke around you, that you are struggling through right now, that shadow, those stories, that fear that is not allowing you to expand. And instead of hiding them, can you welcome them here? Can you extend to them grace? And extend to your body, your mind, and your essence in this time of turmoil and struggle, this time of confusion, in this war inside of you. Can you give them grace? Give them ease right now, these stories. And wherever they exist in your body and in your mind, can you grant yourself grace? If you are not used to allowing yourself love from yourself, this might be a challenge. And so let us call upon the wind, which is the element of the west. And as you breathe, just focus on that wind moving things. One of the things and the imagery that I have, and that's been in my heart to share with you in this plática, this meditation, has been that of dandelion. But as a child, I loved dandelions. I loved sitting in the grass with dandelions. I wasn't always the one making the chains, but the dandelion chains and necklaces and all of that. I just loved them. I loved being with them. I loved picking them once in a while. And I loved when they went to seed, blowing and spreading those seeds. And so that is what the imagery, the plant kingdom is here. Dandelion specifically is here to help you at this time with grace. So you can imagine dandelions, they get a bad rap. These weeds, right? That's probably why there are less than when I grew up, who have been many times eradicated in some places by humans, by poisoning Mother Earth. When will we ever learn? When we poison Mother Earth, we poison ourselves. But I want you to think of the things in your life, these stories that to you are these obnoxious weeds, even though dandelions have amazing medicinal qualities to them. But again, our limited stories of dandelions is that they are obnoxious, they are weeds, and we must pull them out, we must poison them, we must bury them. They must not be seen, because we want our lawns, our life, to look like these perfectly manicured, green, controlled things. So today, invite those dandelions, that shadow, those stories to pop up in your manicured garden, lawn. First, can you recognize the beauty of them? I mean, yellow is amazing. I mean, to have them make these yellow against green, just the sight of them is delicious on the eyes. What a pop. Dandelions don't hide. They are not hiding. They stand in the sun. They look like little suns, stars on a lawn. And in this time of Achpu, of standing in the sun, Lord of the sun, we welcome dandelion. We thank dandelion for reminding us in the plant kingdom of how it is to grow in Mother Earth and stand in the sun. And can we do so now? Keep breathing, keep believing as you allow this dandelions of your life to come up, to be witnessed. And then I want you to go through that life cycle of that dandelion as it grows, it shines in the sun, and then it goes to seed. And that time of when you are feeling in seed. This is the time of seed, of gathering seeds. And how the thing that you loved being in the sun is now to you your shadow, and you don't know how to move beyond it. And so you ask wind, that spontaneous wind of grace, to come and blow, give life. To the seeds of your potential that came from this life cycle of living and dying, and that today will be filled of grace. And and see all of these beautiful dandelion seeds floating in the air. You don't know where you will be planted, where that expansion is going to come. You don't know what it's going to look like, who you're going to be in it. Can you allow yourself the grace of not having expectations and trying to control? Breathe. Receive. Let go. Accept. Grace in. Grace out. Grace in. Grace out. One more time. Grace in. Grace out. And as you allow yourself this undeserved, not expected energy of movement, as you receive it from Mother Nature, from dandelion, from the plant people, from the wind, from the lightning and the thunder and the rain that are right outside my window right now and have come to support this grace. Can we walk out of this circle with amazement, with awe, with gratitude, allowing ourselves to let go? That is when amazing grace is a sweet sound of the rain and the thunder. And yes, you can hear lightning and the wind and the seeds and the ants and the life all around you. That is the sweet sound of all beings on this planet, unexpectedly allowing each other the room to grow and to be, to shine in the sun like dandelions. So with that, we take our 3 breaths. As we start walking our parts out of the circle, moving our body, our mind, and our essence, thanking the West for holding us in these teachings as we walk to the north, the place where we will be shortly, back down to the east, walking our body, our mind, and our essence out of that circle where all of the elements have been there holding us. For remember, lightning is fire in the sky. And with that, we take our 3 breaths coming back. And we do so with intention, and we do so with grace, starting now, in and out through the nose. Thanking our essence, giving it grace for being in this time and space. In and out through the nose, thanking our body and giving it grace for being in this time and space. In and out through the nose, thanking our mind, giving it grace for being in this time and space. Rubbing our hands together if you can, creating that friction, right? That spontaneous electricity, that heat, putting our hands to our hearts, feeling the heat of our reaction, of our body, of this spontaneous reaction happening, this grace, the warmth of it to fill our hearts. And with that, I bow to you. And I bow to all of my teachers, and in this case, especially Vision Song, who was part of the impetus for this conversation, this unexpected ceremony I sat in, unexpected lesson of grace. So with that, I thank her elders and the Hopi people. And I thank all those teachers that I've sat with in the many traditions. And I thank my ancestors for allowing me the grace to step into grace and wisdom today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And many alohas. That state of grace and mercy, living in balance with your parts and Mother Earth, that is aloha. Be one that you live this week. Shade. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.